The next tool that I want to show you today is the pen tool. This is what you use if you want to create your own shapes. I'll go over a few different features of the pen tool and show you how to use it. So you start by clicking on this old-timey looking pen nib. When you hover over it, it says pen tool. Now notice when I start to draw, I have this little asterisk on the corner of the pen tool. That little star is telling me that I'm about to draw a new shape. Start by just clicking once anywhere on your artboard. Now move away and notice how I'm not clicking at all, but I'm just moving away from that first point and a line is kind of following me. So go somewhere new, click again, and that sets a new point. Move away, click. Notice my little asterisk is gone. I'm just building a shape. Maybe I'll make a little dinosaur head. Out of the page. There. There's his neck. He's got a little ear. Now, as I'm about to close a shape, notice now that an open circle appears on the bottom edge of my pen tool. All that's telling me is you are now about to close or complete a shape. Get here, and my shape has completed. I want you now to pay attention to these two squares on the left corner here. I can actually see in these squares, this one represents the fill, what color my shape I just drew is filled with. This one here represents the stroke, or the outline of the shape. Notice that there's a red hash bar through both of these. What that means is right now, if I hover over this, this is also a red hash bar, it says none. There is no fill and no stroke. So if I click away from this with the selection tool, it looks like it disappeared. It's actually there, but because it has no spill and no stroke, it's basically invisible. I can find it by clicking and dragging over my artboard, and then I have it selected again with the selection tool. If I want to make it visible, I need to either put a fill or a stroke on it. So let's put a fill on it. I'm going to click on that fill box, and just really simply I'm going to come down here and click on that black box to add color. And now it's filled in with black. I'm going to start with that. I'll do a separate tutorial on color, gradients, and outlines. So that's my pen tool. I want you to experiment a little bit with just building and completing shapes using the pen tool. Just click once, come back, and make sure you connect it to close the shape. Notice that if I don't close the shape, and I keep drawing, it keeps making lines for me, and those lines can intersect, and I can actually create something that looks kind of confusing. It's trying to find the shape and close it up, and it's going to keep drawing lines until I either close it or I come over here and I go to my selection tool. So I can use the pen tool, and I don't have to close the shape. I can just go over to my selection tool and say, okay, I'm done. And it leaves it as an open shape. But I do recommend, if you want to make a shape, making sure it's closed by coming back to that start point, getting that circle in the corner, and clicking once to close it. Now I see that asterisk again, my pen tool is telling me I close that shape, I'm ready to create a new one. I want to show you something else about the pen tool, so I'm coming to my selection tool, I'm going to click and drag to select all of this, I'm going to delete it. I like my little monster head, so I'm keeping that for now. I'm going to click back on the pen tool, and the next thing I want you to try is click once to set your first point, come away from there, and now click and hold, don't let go, and drag. And notice now what you're drawing is a point with the curved lines coming off of it, like we saw before. So now you can make curvy shapes, and you can have pointy sides to them. So let's say maybe this is a pineapple. I want to come out and give it some spikes. It's trying to fill the whole thing in, and it sort of guesses where you're going, but it's not great at it. So don't be distracted by that fill kind of coming in and taking over. You can still go into your shape by remembering where your lines and outlines are. Be careful not to cross over any of your outlines so you're not making nonsensical shapes. So I'm staying true to what this should be. And I'm going to connect here and drag that out to make that a bit of an arc. Okay, so now I've created a shape that has both curves and sharp points. I'm going to use my selection tool. I'm going to rotate it. And now my dragon is trying to eat what looks like more of an octopus than a pineapple. There we go. Okay, so that is the pen tool. And I want to talk a little bit more about fills, but I want to stay kind of brief, and then we'll go more in depth in the next tutorial. But let's say I wanted to give these creatures eyes. I'm going to go into the shape tool, use ellipses, and now I can put a circle here for an eye. If it's black on a black background, it's not going to show up. So I want to change that to white, and I can just click here to the default fill and stroke, and default is a white fill with a black outline. And now I've got an eye there, and maybe I want to make a pupil. So still within the circle tool, I'm going to click and drag, and I want that one actually to be a black fill with a white outline. So what I'm going to do is click on this little arrow up here to swap fill and stroke. And now it's a black fill with a white outline. And I can see I've made a little eye for my dragon. And maybe this octopus needs some eyes too. And give him big ones. He's looking really surprised about the fact that he's about to get eaten. If we get to the point where I can rotate this. And I can do Command C to copy and Command V to paste. I'm going to hold down Shift to select both of those. And swap fill and stroke. Now with another ellipse tool, make little pupils for his eyes. Swap fill and stroke. This way. Command copy, Command paste. Now we've got a dragon eating a surprised octopus. Okay, I'm going to stop here because I want you to take some time to experiment with these. So using the pen tool, I want you to create some shapes. Start by making pointy shapes. Really try to have them make sense and end up closed. And then draw a few curvy shapes. Draw a heart. Give it some curves. And then come to a point. And remember, if you don't like any of these shapes, you can always adjust these points with the direct selection tool. One last thing that I want to show you is you can always turn a pointy point into a curvy point. So if I click and hold on the pen tool, you see I have Add Anchor Point Tool, Delete Anchor Point Tool, or Anchor Point Tool. I'm going to go to Anchor Point Tool, and notice it's this little curve sign. I'm going to come in here where I have a point that just is a point. I'm going to click on that and drag out, and notice I can now turn it into a curvy point. If I click on it again, it's pointy again. So the anchor point tool allows you to turn anchor points from arcs or curves into pointy points, or vice versa. You can also get rid of one of these control points and actually only have it be curved on one side. You can use the Add Anchor Point tool to add anchor points, and that allows you to get more detail. So instead of just a straight line, now with my direct selection tool, I can give this line a little bit more nuance, have it do something a little more interesting. Or if I don't like that, I can delete anchor points and get it simple again. This is a good way to simplify shapes too if they get too complicated. You can always come in with the delete anchor point tool and get it back to something less complex. Okay, so I think that's enough for now. I want you to experiment with the pen tool. I want you to make pointy and curved shapes. I want you to turn pointy parts of the shape into curvy parts, and I want you to add and delete anchor points so you get really comfortable with what this tool can do.